Welcome to The Explainer by SenseTalking. May peace be upon the universe, and remember, religion is the highest form of politics. Today, we're going to unpack a text that dives right into that intersection of faith, power, and history. It takes a hard look at the historical expansion of Islam and then argues that there are some pretty direct parallels to what's happening in the West right now. It is a really provocative argument, so let's just get straight into the source material. Okay, so right off the bat, the text we're looking at lays its cards on the table with this really powerful claim. This quote, this is the whole foundation of the argument. It's not suggesting a gradual blending of cultures. The assertion here is that history shows a clear pattern of replacement, not coexistence. So the big question is, how does the author back this up? Well, they start by taking us way back in time.
All right, first up, the historical expansion. The source really builds its entire case on this foundation of history, laying out a timeline of conquest and conversion that spans 1,000 years, kicking off right after the death of the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. So, take a look at this. You can really see the rapid succession of these major historical shifts. It's just one after the other. It starts in the 7th century with the heartlands of the Byzantine Empire, Syria, Palestine, Egypt. Then it moves west across Christian North Africa and pushes up into Spain, where it was famously halted in 732. But it doesn't stop there. Centuries later, you have the fall of Constantinople, a huge moment, and the Ottoman push into the Balkans. For the source, this timeline is absolutely crucial to grasp the scale and the sheer pace of this transformation.
Now, the text argues this wasn't just about drawing new lines on a map. It was about a fundamental, deep-seated demographic shift, especially in places that had been centers of Christianity for centuries. And this table is where the source really tries to drive that point home with some stark numbers. I mean, just think about Turkey, the heart of the Eastern Roman or Byzantine Empire, now over 99% Muslim. Or Egypt, a cradle of early Christianity, now over 90% Muslim. The text claims these transformations weren't accidental. They were the result of things like conversion, yes, but also intense social pressures and taxes levied specifically on non-Muslims. Okay, so here's where the whole argument pivots. The source isn't just giving us a history lesson for the sake of it. The crucial point is to draw a direct line from all of these historical events to what's happening right now, specifically in the West. This right here is the core comparison. It's like the source is saying, look at the how back then, and look at the how right now. Historically, it was military conquest and political control. Today, the text argues, the drivers are different. Large-scale immigration, higher birth rates among immigrant communities, and growing cultural influence. So while the methods have changed, the source warns that the potential outcome, a complete cultural transformation, is a kind of historical echo. And the text gets really specific about what those modern concerns are. It points to demographics, declining birth rates in many Western countries compared to immigrant populations. It highlights pushes for legal accommodations, things like Sharia councils or what it calls Islamophobia laws. And then it makes this other point. It suggests that if you want to see a potential future, you should look at the status of Christian minorities in many Muslim-majority countries today. The underlying principle here, according to the source, is that a Muslim majority often leads to Islamic governance. To try and make all this less abstract, the text then zooms in on one country as a kind of real-world case study, the United Kingdom. So the first piece of evidence the source presents is the growth of religious infrastructure. We're talking more than 2,000 mosques and prayer rooms in the UK. For the author, this isn't just a statistic, it's a tangible, physical indicator of a growing and deeply established presence. And then it goes a step further, highlighting what it frames as parallel legal structures. The source points to the existence of dozens of Sharia councils. These are bodies that handle personal and family matters based on Islamic principles. For the author, this is a huge deal. It's seen as evidence of a separate system operating right alongside British law, which gets to the very heart of that question of integration versus replacement. The text then stacks up these additional points to argue that Islamic culture is becoming entrenched not just in local communities, but in the actual power structures of Britain. It talks about political representation with Muslim mayors in several major cities, including London. It points to huge public cultural celebrations like the month-long festivities for Ramadan in London. And then it brings up a very controversial point, citing reports on the cover-up of groomer gangs as evidence in its view of institutional protection. So after walking us through all of this history and this modern case study of the UK, the text doesn't actually offer a solution. It doesn't tell you what to do. Instead, it just leaves the reader with one final, very challenging question. And that's the note it ends on. This one question is meant to wrap up the entire warning presented in the text. It's designed to reframe everything: contemporary immigration, demographic shifts, not as something totally new, but as a potential turning point with deep and, according to this source, irreversible historical roots. And that's our look into this text for today.